Guadalcanal was a walk in the park compared to Peleliu. I think we were all in a state of shock because we were breaking the one of the first rules of amphibious landings, which is get off the beach. We were tied down on that beach for an hour or two, and they killed hundreds of people on the beach. So when we finally got our act together and got off the beach, we advanced towards the ridges where they were really holed up. And the battle took, well, my regiment, the first, was pretty well wiped out the first 6 days. They were relieved after 6 days. And the 5th and 7th regiments stuck around for another month, trying to do what they could to clear the island. But Peleliu was fortified up to the neck. I had rifle grenades, and I could see they were firing at us from a certain cave because it was covered with a cargo net, and I could see the net jump when they fired at us. So I fired a couple rifle grenades in there, and it quieted the thing down. And nobody was moving on the beach, so there was one more pillbox left, and I used the rifle grenades in there. There was also a trench full on the beach of Japanese that nobody saw and knew, and all of a sudden, the biggest Jap I ever saw jumped out of this trench, and he had fixed bayonets, and he was looking right at me. And I was going to jump up and try to stop him, but about, I don't know how many people fired over my head, and that bayonet slid in the sand about 4 feet from my nose. So it was an interesting experience on the beach, and it didn't get any better from there. We advanced toward the ridges. It was rocky, scrubby terrain. And we had so many casualties, I kept finding myself alone. And most of my squad or fire team was casualties, killed or wounded. So I found myself alone, and all of a sudden, boom. So this big flash, I found myself on my face, and I was feeling myself for all the little nicks and scratches and everything I had. But I thought I better get up and see who was shooting at me. I looked over, and there's our own people standing there in a row by a tank looking over in my direction. So I knew it was them, so I gave them that, and I walked over to them, and, well, I call them recruits or something like that. I I told him the Japanese were that way, up in the ridges, and if he shoot at me again, I'm going to shoot back. We were breaking, as I said, every rule of amphibious landing on that beach by staying there, because they were picking us off from the ridges with everything they had. So I had a couple of rifle grenades, and I used them on those pillboxes, and they worked because every grenade that was thrown in would come back. So a rifle grenade goes off on contact, and it worked. So that helped get us off the beach. We took the ridge the second day, and the Japanese would pop out from here and there and hit us before we knew it. And after we took the ridge, Bloody Nose Ridge, I settled down with my fire teammate for the night, and we couldn't dig holes, so we just piled rocks around ourselves. We were on what they call the military crest, which is down below the top of the ridge, because they didn't want us up on the top for what reason I don't know. But we couldn't see anybody coming from where we were. And it was the middle of the night. I was dozing, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. There's hand grenades going off all around us. My fire teammate says I'm dead. And so I called for a corpsman and the platoon sergeant, and we had to go retake the top of the ridge. And I told him to get me some hand grenades, which he did. And we got up, a few of us, back up to the top of the ridge, threw hand grenades over the top, ran up, shot a few, and we had the top of the ridge back, which we should never have left in the first place. And that was the way it went the first night on Bloody Ridge. The Japanese on Peleliu were as fanatic as every place else we fought them, and they would pop out at night mostly, because during the day we could see them. And they hit us all over the place at night. And they'd take so many casualties every time. And the first night on Peleliu, I wound up in a big shell hole, or I don't know, whatever kind of hole it was, but I found some dripping water, cool dripping water. And I congratulated myself for doing it, because I filled up all my canteens and a couple of shell casings that held water, and I sipped cool water all night, because the next day everybody was practically dying of thirst, because somebody had goofed and not cleaned out the fuel cans that water was then used in. So just another little goof that helps along the way. We had to clean out some caves, and it took a lot of grenades, and uh, we never knew if we got anybody in there, but we used explosives and make sure the cave was sealed up. The first night, we hadn't gotten to the ridges yet, and we could look up and hear what sounded like machinery squeaking, and see that they were closing fortified doors, metal doors, and that was waiting for us, because every time they could roll their artillery out on tracks and fire down on us, and then roll it back, close the door, and they're sealed up. And they took a heavy toll on us that first night before we took the ridge, because they were looking right down our throats. We got relieved. They took us out of action, and I didn't have anybody left in my fire team, so that's how long the regiment lasted. We were relieved. We were taken out of combat. I myself, I was evacuated and to a hospital ship, and they dumped us at a Navy base in Manus Island in the Admiralty Islands. That was another sidebar. If you wanted chow, you had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and wait. I'd go down in line. It took about 2+ hours to get chow. The Seabees were smart. The Seabees were making a good buck selling pornographic literature, etc. But we went back to Pabubu from Manus in the Admiralties. They tried to put us on a working party, and we had a sit-down strike. And the commander said, "Get them the hell out of here." So they took us back to Pabubu. And there we were again on Pabubu, but already our time was up. They'd started a credit system of time overseas and time in combat, etc., that allowed you the minutes or whatever to go home. And we discovered we were well over that, the limit. And what do you know? One day came the USS Billy Mitchell transport. I remember the name because we were so happy to board her. And we got on a Billy Mitchell, and about a month and a half later, we're pulling into San Diego, the port. The Dolphins looked like they were happy to see us. We pulled into San Diego and got processed. I had a Japanese saber that I'd taken from a Japanese NCO on top of Bloody Nose Ridge. Still have it, but they took that away from me while I was getting processed at San Diego because somebody would have stolen it for sure. But it didn't take too long to process out of San Diego, and we're on our way home. First leave I ever had.